Hey folks, welcome to the stream here. David, if you're new to the channel, I'm so happy to be here with you all this morning, despite some internet issues, and apologies if you are getting some choppy playback. We'll just try to work through it as best we can. I think I've tried every option. Got the Ethernet option, you know, all plugged in, reset the router, reset the computer, but hopefully it won't be too distracting. Because we're here to play mandolin. We're here to talk about how to play up the neck as well. Which is such a big topic, you know. For a long time, I felt the same as a lot of you folks here on the poll, feeling like I couldn't get past the 7th fret. I didn't know how to play up there because most of the stuff that we tend to learn, especially at the beginning, happens in this part of the neck. But there's so many cool things that we can do as we get further and further up. And I'm excited to talk about a lot of the possibilities, stuff that I've picked up along the ways, hacks and tricks that we can use, even if you have never played up there before, if you don't know those notes, if you feel scared to go up there, because it's kind of like approaching the edge of the world. You know, there'd be sea monsters up there. But yeah, let me know in the comments here too. I'd love to connect with you all here, answer some personal questions too. If there's any specific questions that you have about stuff that we're talking about, please let me know, and I'll be fielding the chat as we go for. Yeah, it's Mando Chop Internet. I like that. So let's just start with a little bit of fretboard review. So let's talk about like how to know some of the notes, because that's, I think, the most important part about all the stuff that we're going to be talking about. How to know what notes happen where. So I'm sure we all know our open strings, right? G, D, A, E, no problem. But I don't know, when you first start out, sometimes to know the other notes, I just had to start counting up the strings. I don't know if you guys were there at some point or still there, where you feel like, oh yeah, this is G, let's see, that's G sharp, right? That's A, that's B flat, B, C, and you know, it takes a long time to get up to the territory that we want to cover. So what I think is helpful is, you know, eventually knowing all the note names, right? Because that's going to be helpful for knowing what key we're in, what starting places we're going to choose for some of these shapes. You know, that's a big project. Don't feel like you have to memorize every single fret and note name on the fretboard just at this minute. What I think is more helpful is maybe starting with some different starting places. So instead of trying to memorize all the notes up and down the neck, just starting to maybe learn like your dotted frets up and down the neck. Those are really nice kind of visual landmarks on the fretboard that you can use as new starting places to count up or down, right? So just like, you know, G, D, A, E, we want to have the same type of familiarity with these notes right here, right? Give me a shout out. What are those notes right there in the comment section? This one's kind of easy in some ways, because if we start on the high end, if we start with the 5th fret there, it's the same note as your open A string, right? It's just an octave higher. So that's an A note right there on the 5th fret of our E string, right? Same thing with the 5th fret on your A string there, right? That's a D note, same as your open D string if it's in tune. And then 5th fret on your D string is the same as your open G, an octave higher there. The only one that you have to remember outright is the C note right here on the 5th fret of your G string. So all together here, this is what we got. We have C, G, A, and wait, did I get that right? C, G, D, and A. I need to work on this myself too. So all of a sudden, once you have those memorized, once you have those on the tip of your tongue, you can use that as a new starting place, right? You can kind of count up, okay, like C, C sharp, D, or you could even count down. It's, you know, C, B, B flat. And then once you learn the other dotted frets, that becomes also really helpful landmarks that you can use to count from, right? So check out like your 7th fret, right? Here we go, we have D, right? D for the 7th fret of your G string. It's actually a unison note to your open string. And then we have A on the 7th fret of your D string, E on the 7th fret of your A string, and then the only one that you have to remember outright is the 7th fret on the E string, which is a B note, right? So you have D, A, E, B. All right, and then there's just one more that's kind of hard to remember. This one right here, right? Your 10th fret. This one, you know, you don't have the similar relationships between the strings like you do on the A, or sorry, on the 5th and the 7th frets for the G, D, A, E strings. So here, we have to kind of remember all these outright, right? So check this out. On the 10th fret of your G string, what note would that be, right? Oh, look, it's actually the same as the 3rd fret on your D string. It's an F note there. Then we have C on the D string, 10th fret. Then we have G, 10th fret of the A string, and then D on the 10th fret of the E string, right? Just like that. That's the tricky one, right? F, C, G, D. But the handy thing is right after that, the 12th fret, you probably know those are just octaves of your open strings, right? So you have G, D, A, E, no problem, just like your open strings there. That's gonna be a really helpful tool as we move forward. So try to remember those. Let's review. So we have G, D, A, E. Then on the 5th fret, we have C, G, D, A. And then we have on the 7th fret, D, A, E, B. 10th fret, we have F, C, G, D. And then we get back to where we started, right? We have G, D, A, E on the 12th fret there. Nice, cool. All right, so we can use those as, you know, counting places, but eventually, you know, learning all the notes up and down the fretboard is gonna be really useful. And some of the stuff we're gonna be talking about will kind of help us get there. So if you wanna learn more about my approach to learning all those notes, there's an old video here on the channel you can check out. It's called, I think, Master the Fretboard in 7 Steps or something like that. It's from about 5 years ago now. It's hard to believe. But it goes over how to take that knowledge up to the next level, learn every single note up and down the neck there. But for now, let's check out some handouts. And I just wanted to mention here at the start too, if you're just tuning in, for all you Patreon members, there's some handouts to go along with this stream. I've been really excited to share with you all. There's actually 12 pages. It's quite a lot. We're gonna try to get through it all in the stream today if we can. But if you wanna follow along at your own pace and review afterwards too, you can download these PDFs over on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. And all the stuff that we're gonna be talking about, all these handouts, they're gonna be on screen at some point or another too, so you don't necessarily need them, but if you wanna have them for keeps, you can grab them over at that link there. And let's see, so the first page is called the 2 boxes, and I wanna just spend some time digging in here on that, because it's, I think, a huge concept that doesn't really get talked a lot about on the mandolin. So check this out. Oops, wrong page. Here we go. The 2 boxes. You know, I was talking to Mickey Abraham and I don't know if you know Andy as well, Andy Hatfield, who is, I guess, Acoustic Groovebox on YouTube. Both of those are, they're both incredible folks, incredible players, and they just think about the mandolin so interestingly. We were doing a live stream together, I guess it was a few months back, and we both, all 3 of us, we came to kind of this funny conclusion that there's really only 2 shapes that we use to play up and down the neck in closed position. And the first one is called the chop box. And this is something I talked about in a video a little while ago too. I think it's called Use This One Shape to Level Up Your Bluegrass Mandolin Solos. And it is really useful, especially for bluegrass, but all sorts of different styles of music, because the chop box is just a familiar shape, and it's kind of born out of the chop chord. Don't worry if you can't make the huge stretch to do the 4-finger chop shape just yet. We're actually just gonna be using these 3 fingers, kind of like the 3-finger shape that you might know for C or D, which is a lot easier. And we're not even gonna be thinking about these as chords necessarily, more as just shapes to play out of. It's a really helpful visual shape too, because we're so used to kind of moving this chord around to get to different major chords. We can even turn it into a minor chord. And that's what we're gonna be doing here, but on a melodic front. So check this out. The first couple measures there just shows you how the chop box is right here. And those circled notes are the roots for the G major chord. And if you think about it, we're really just playing a major arpeggio there, a G major arpeggio. But hopefully you can see how that really just outlines those 3 notes of our chop box, even though we're adding in an extra note there on the 5th fret of the A string. That's so helpful, just realizing that. And then you can see how we can move that shape around to other chords just like we'd use for the normal chop chord, right? So C major, right? Right, same thing there. And if you check out, let's see, I'll scroll up a little bit. For your D chord, same thing, just move up with your ring finger on the 7th fret of the G string now. Yeah, so the most important thing to remember is that you want to keep your fingerings the same, right? You want to always start with your ring finger on the low root and then have your middle finger on the high root there. Just like you do whenever you're playing these chop shapes. Otherwise, you know, if you start to change the fingerings, the shape starts to lose its visual helpfulness and it becomes a little bit more confusing about how to play these licks. But what's so cool is that you can just use this shape to create all sorts of licks here. So check this out. If you check out the next line here on screen, we have several licks that we can use just with this one shape here. So lick number 1, ascending. You've probably heard this before. It's like a classic Monroe style lick. And we're not playing any notes outside that chop box, right? It's just the arpeggio. So fun. I use that lick all the time. Whether I'm thinking about it or not, it's just become kind of so ingrained into my fingers because I'm used to playing around this shape. But the really cool thing is this has a correlation to the chord, right? This is a G major arpeggio. We're playing over a G chop chord, the G chop box. So this lick is going to sound really good over a G major chord. Doesn't matter what key you're in, even you can just think, okay, this is a G major chord, I could play this lick. And same thing if you're playing over a different chord, like say for instance you're in the key of A, you're playing over an A major chord, well just find your A major chop chord. You can keep your fingerings the same. You know, if you're looking at the tab, the numbers won't correspond to the A major chord, but you know, if you're thinking more in terms of fingerings and spacing, you're playing on the same strings even, you're playing on kind of the same spacing, and you got the same lick. And I remember the first time I discovered this, I mean, this might be kind of, you know, old hat to a lot of you folks, but I remember when I first realized this, it was so mind-blowing to be like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. I can play in any key that I want to, play over any chord that I want to. I can, you know, come up with my own bag of licks to use just with this one shape. In fact, you can like build a whole solo just using this one shape. That's what I did in that video here on the channel if you want to check it out. Use this one shape to level up your bluegrass mandolin solos. And instead of like going through that, I want to go over just like a few other licks that you could use just with this one physical shape here. So let's check out number 2, descending, right? So cool, right? Same notes, right? We're just playing them in reverse order. So you don't have to start on the low note. You can start on the high note of the shape. And as we'll see, you know, you can even use different notes within the shape. You don't have to start on the root, but it's a nice kind of way of structuring your lick to make it sound very strongly in agreement with the chord that's being played. Those 2 roots right there for G. Let's just blaze through a lot of these. So number 3 is connecting notes, right? So we can start to see, oh yeah, there's other notes surrounding the chop box that I could utilize in my solo. So check this out. Oh, sorry. There it is. So you see I'm adding in one extra note beyond the chop box. I'm adding in the 3rd note, or the 3rd fret on my A string, I should say. Just like that, right? So we're adding in this passing tone. It's not a chord tone, but it helps to create a little bit more of a melodic sense and linear sense to the melody that you're playing. Here's another way that you could think about it. If we check out number 4 on the next line there, the lower box. So we could just utilize, you know, 2 strings. We don't have to play all 3 strings of the box. Check this out. So this is the lower half of the shape. Again, we're adding in that 3rd fret on the A string. And we're we're getting this cool little kind of windy melody that works pretty well. And then we could also use the upper box, number 5 there. Check this out. So that's just the 2 higher strings of that chop box. Just to show you, there's all sorts of possibilities here. Let's check out some more too. So if we scroll up here to the number 6 lick, the bluesy 3rd, here we can start to include other notes, maybe even outside the key that we're in, to add some angst and some bluegrassy sound to what's going on here. So the bluesy 3rd is where you add the B flat, or some people call this the dirty 3rd, where you kind of oscillate between the flat 3 and then the normal 3. Something that happens a lot in bluegrass, right? So here we're just adding in that lower 3rd note, the lower 3rd note of the scale that we're playing around. And you get this cool, even more bluegrass sounding lick. Pretty cool, right? All right, what about number 7? We could also use a different blue note, the lowered 7th here, to create another sound. So we're adding in that F natural. We're lowering, the 7th note of the scale down to the F natural here. Pretty fun, right? Oh man, what about if we wanted to play an even longer lick though? These are only just like 1 measure long. So we could do all sorts of stuff like this. Check this out. If we go down to number 8 here, the last lick, the extended box, this shows you how you can stretch this out for as long as you want to. This is just an example, but you could play something like this and get some notes even higher and lower than the box to play what you want. That one's so fun. Right? Yeah. And believe it or not, that's actually a movable lick. We're not using any open strings, right? So again, if we wanted to play this over like a B chord, right? You just find your B major chop chord up here. It has to be a 4-finger chop chord for this one here. And then you can play this lick. Shout out to any folks who are trying that out right now. So fun, right? Whew, we've already covered a lot of ground here, but let me show you the second box. So you see that, the title of this page is called the 2 boxes. That's the first one, the chop box, that I use so much. And it's also helpful, the chop box, just because you can like kind of transition from playing backup to playing a lick. And then back to backup. So it's really useful for adding in fills while you're playing accompaniment over like a verse or a chorus in a vocal song. But let's move on to our next box. So the next box is the pentatonic box. And if anyone saw the video that I posted this week on how to level up your pentatonic scale, then this is gonna be really familiar. But hopefully something that can take that information and show you maybe some practical ways of utilizing these shapes. So for this box, we're starting with the root, the low root on our index finger. So check this out, back for the key of G. We're gonna have our index finger on the 5th fret of the D string now. And we're playing those first 3 measures of that line there. And this one's a little bit more, I don't know, robust, this shape, because you're playing, instead of just 3 different notes, you're playing 5 different notes, the pentatonic shape there, pent meaning 5. And all these notes, they sound really consonant over any chord in the key of G, for the G major pentatonic. Super fun, right? Let me show you, if you want to see an up-close version, this is what it looks like. Just like that. So all closed position, the The fret numbers are 5, 7, 9 on the D string, and we have 5, 7, 10 on the A string there. And then the cool thing is this one is also movable too. So if we wanted to play this for your C chord, now we just find a C root, like your new root for the C chord, with your index finger again. So here I am on the 5th fret. Remember that from earlier, right? That's our C note. And we keep the exact same fingers. That's so cool, isn't it? Like, you don't have to change anything. Same frets even here. Now you're playing the C major pentatonic scale. But you can also do this on different strings, right? That's the cool symmetrical thing about the mandolin. It doesn't have to be on just the G and the D strings. You could play this on like the A and E strings. Now you have your D major pentatonic scale. So that's G. Here we have C. And then we have D. So basically, you know, we're just hunting and pecking with our index finger. That's what I love about this one. So for the pentatonic box, you're starting on the index, and then if we go back to the chop box, we're starting on our ring finger. Those are kind of like the two important fingers on the fretboard. And then there you go. Those are the two shapes. But let's check out some licks that we could do with this pentatonic box. So check out lick number 1 here. This one is just, you know, kind of a similar ascending lick. It almost sounds like a banjo lick. And if we wanted to play this over a different chord, we could, you know, if we wanted to play over an F chord, for instance, all we have to do is find like an F note here with our index finger. Keep our fingerings the same, and we've got this same lick over an F chord now. Or check out lick number 2 here, descending. So back in the key of G, you're starting with the pinky on the 10th fret there. That almost sounds like a fiddle tune turnaround. Just like that, yeah. Nice. Or what about lick number 3 here? What does this sound like? So it's just the lower box, right? You're only playing on one string there, but hopefully you can see how that still outlines that pentatonic shape. Or number 4 there, the upper box, right? Starting on the higher G on your pinky. Pretty simple, but just to show you, oh yeah, you don't have to play the whole thing. You can just take bits and pieces of this to create your own licks. All right, let's keep going. Then we'll take some time to unpack all this stuff, do some Q&A. So the bluesy third here for lick number 5, starting on the 5th fret on your index finger again. And then what about the bluesy 7th there for lick number 6? Starting on the high note again. That one's a little bit harder. I gotta work on that one. Ah, man. It's kind of hard starting and ending on the pinky there, but really useful as well. All right, the mega lick here. What about kind of the extended box, the notes around this shape that we can utilize? Wish me luck, see if I can play this. Oh man, let me try it again. I got it this time, here we go. Right? So we're playing even up on the E string and the G string around this shape that happens on the D and the A strings. So fun, right? And I hope that makes sense too with the fingerings, right? You want to, just like we did with the chop box earlier, you don't want to change your fingerings and like, you know, start with your ring finger or middle finger up the neck. You want to make sure you start with your pinky, even though it's harder, just so you can keep your finger spacings the same and even move tough licks like this to different keys. Like for the key of E, for instance there. Same fingerings, just moving to a different part of the neck to get a different lick for a different chord, or same lick for a different chord, I should say. But I know we've talked a lot here. Let's unpack the two boxes here. Come over to the chat and let me know. Shoot me any questions that you have about these shapes and we'll unpack it a bit. By the way, so cool to see some familiar faces here. DJ Roller, what's up? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Rick Fannin, awesome to have you here. All these awesome folks. Mandolin, Stu, familiar faces from the Patreon page and from over the years. It's so fun to get to hang and talk about mandolin and this aspect, man. It's so fun. So the two boxes, I think, are really the two shapes that I primarily use when I'm improvising, when I'm playing up the neck. Well, if I'm playing like a fiddle tune up the neck, I tend to choose one of these positions just because it prioritizes your index finger for one, right? The pentatonic box really prioritizes that index finger, which always feels the strongest to use. And then for some reason, the ring finger, it tends to be like a priority as well for a lot of the shapes that end up happening on the mandolin fretboard. So, you know, for instance, you can even start to see how these shapes start to connect, right? Yeah, Glenn is asking, I assume you can combine the two boxes when you want. You're a step ahead of me here. So for instance, check this out. Like if you're in the key of D, if you're playing the D chop box here, you start to see, oh wait. If I just shift up with my index finger to the high D, now I've got the pentatonic box, right? So, or what about this? What if I shifted my index finger to that low root there? And then I've got, oh yeah, I've got the pentatonic box in a lower octave now. Oh wait, what if I do this? Start the high root of the pentatonic box with my ring finger. Now I've got the chop box in a higher octave as well. So you start to see all these shapes, they really start to connect together. Let me show you that a little bit closer up here if you want to see. So here's the chop box shape. And then, oh wait, what if I shift up here? My index finger is now on the high root. I've got the pentatonic box. What if I shift my middle finger up to that high root? And I've now got like a high chop box here. Or what if I start to shift down with my pinky on that low D now, and then I've got the pentatonic box there. So they really combine together in useful ways. And when I'm improvising, those are kind of like the two tried and true shapes that I start to really go for. Let's see. Any tips on connecting 2-octave pentatonic scales? Yeah, great question, Dennis. So if you start with that pentatonic box, for one, I think it's helpful, like the extended shape that we just played. Like that's actually kind of a almost 2-octave version of the pentatonic scale. You're going from D to D on the G pentatonic scale. And that's actually something we talk a little bit in this pentatonic video that I just put out. You know, using that basic shape, the 1-octave shape, and seeing what notes kind of lay around it. Kind of like the classic 2-octave shape though, is if you start on the index finger on the G string. So for like your D pentatonic scale, if you start here on the 7th fret of your G string, and you can play 2 octaves really easily, just like that. Here's what that looks like. So starting with your index finger on the 7th fret of the G string, we're just playing that 1-octave shape to begin with, but then you can keep going. So the fret numbers here, if you're looking at my screen here, so it's 7, 9, 11, 7, 9, 12. And then we're doing the same thing for the next string, 7, 9, 12, 7, 10, 12. And then back down. And you can check out that video that I just posted this week for some more specific direction there. But that's like kind of the best 2-octave pentatonic scale shape. And then, you can start to learn the pentatonic notes up and down the neck and shift between at least 5 shapes that we have for the pentatonic scale up and down the neck. But I keep coming back to that one with my index finger. That's like the most useful, most recognizable one there. So number 7 is a question here from IES431221. So number 7, are you sliding which finger for the B flat B, or are you using 2 fingers? Yeah, great question, Diane. So for lick number 7 there, I'll come back to the walkthrough. Lick number 7 for that B flat to B transition, I'm not really sliding, I'm kind of more just like shifting my middle finger from the 6th fret to the 7th fret. And then for that one, I'm kind of using my ring finger on the D string. Same notes, B flat to B. And here's what that looks like. So that way I'm trying to stay in position, right? I'm still keeping my index finger mostly on the 5th fret, my pinky on the 10th fret there, and then filling in the gaps with my other 2 fingers. But great question. That's a tricky lick. So fun. Well, yeah, please keep the chat coming. It's so good to hear from y'all. If y'all have any other questions about these boxes, please let me know. But we have 10 other pages to get through. Let's check out page number 3 of the handout here, and we'll work our way through what a lot of people call the FFCP. Sounds like I'm talking like a different language when I talk about this. Also, funny thing, I have no idea why this is, but like all the literature that there is about the FFCP, they always lowercase the C, but not the other letters. I don't know why that is. Like if you check out that great book, Getting into Jazz Mandolin by Ted Eschliman, that's the way they do it there. I think they also, there's a lot of resources on this method on the Jazz Mando website, which is an awesome website too. And they always say, yeah, capital F, lowercase c, capital P. Don't ask me why. Maybe if someone knows in the chat, please let me know. That's so fun. So what that stands for, if you don't know, is 4-finger closed position. And we've talked about 2 boxes that you kind of prioritize 2 fingers, start with 2 different fingers, right? Your index and your ring. But the next step is to start filling in the gaps and realizing, okay, we have 4 fingers that we use on the mandolin on our left hand, and you can start scales and arpeggios on every one of those 4 fingers. So let's check out number 1 here, starting with the index. Now we're talking about full major scales, right? We're not just talking about arpeggios or pentatonic scales. This is your D major scale starting on your index, right? So we're gonna find our D note with our index finger here on the 7th fret of the G string. We're gonna play this shape. Check this out. You probably recognize this one. This is what it looks like. Just like that. Major scale, all 7 different notes. This is what your fingers look like. I kind of, this is the Suzuki technique, right? For violinists out there, to look at a scale and think, oh, what finger spacings am I using on a single set of strings for this scale? So this is what it looks like on your G string, right? If you think about it, you have a space between your index and middle, a space between your middle and ring, and then your pinky is right next to your ring finger there. And then we have the exact same spacings for your D string too. So for both your G and your D strings on that scale, you've got this symmetrical fingerings, which is so handy. But a great way to practice this, is just to use a scale pattern instead of running up and down that shape. Because we never really play music like that. It sounds like an exercise. But if you start to impose a pattern or like a little melody across the scale like this, it becomes a lot more useful and it starts to show you the scale in a different light. So check this out. This is a scale pattern called broken thirds, or some people call this a folded scale. It goes like this. This is the last two measures of that top line there. It gets easier, don't worry if that's tricky. That's a great pattern that I use a lot in improvising. It's actually a melody that's kind of built into a lot of tunes that we know, like Big Scioto, for instance, that classic fiddle tune that we play in bluegrass and old time. Like the melody, that's like what's going on basically if you deconstruct the melody into its working parts. It's just broken thirds like we're playing here for that scale pattern. So something like this is useful for utilizing in a solo or an improv. It can start to pop up in other melodies that you know, and when you have it baked into your fingers in different closed positions like this, it becomes really useful. So that's just our first shape though, right? Index finger. What about your middle finger, right? We haven't really used that one to start with. Let's check out the next line here, starting with your middle finger, number 2. So now we're gonna play the exact same notes, the exact same register for your D major scale, but now instead of using your index finger to start with, now we're using your middle finger. And this one's not super fun, but it does come up from time to time. Check this out. Weird, right? So starting on the 7th fret now with your middle finger. The frets are 7, 9, 11, 5, 7, 9, 11, 5. And the tricky thing about this scale is that if you think about your finger spacings, they're all spread apart, right? So this is your finger spacings for the G string. This is your finger spacings for the D string, and then you just have to creep up to the A string for that one note with your index finger. That's, I think, why this scale shape is not as common, because you're having to really stretch with all your fingers to get the same notes. But it is still useful, and it's actually a really good exercise to see if you can play that same scale pattern on this new shape, right? So check this out. I need to work on it too. Do whatever speed that you need to really work that out. It's such a great stretch for your left hand there. And once you've worked on this, once this shape becomes really familiar, it can kind of get you out of corners that you might end up painting yourself into as an improviser. Like if you find yourself on this part of the neck and you know this shape, then you can kind of play some interesting stuff that way. It gives you more tools for expression. But let's check out the ring finger shape next, right? So we've done index, middle, next is your ring for the FFCP number 3 here. This one's gonna look very similar to your chop box shape, right? We're just kind of filling in the cracks. So just find like your D major chop shape. We're starting with your ring finger on that root. Here's it up close. Right? Yeah. So chop shape. This one feels a lot more comfortable, right, than the middle finger one, because this finger spacings is not quite as spread out. We have this spacing, right, for your G string. For your D string, we have this spacing, right? Your index and middle are close together, space, space. And then for your A string, we just have this, right? I shouldn't do that. That's a bad symbol in some cultures. So that's what we have for this chop shape. But let's check out that that scale pattern as well, right? Right? Nice. Nice, right? All right, one more to go. The worst one, right? We've left this one out so far. Let's get our pinky in the action, right? So come all the way down here to number 4. Start with the pinky. This is what it looks like. Maybe the worst of all of them. Anyone else struggle with that one? Oh man, let me show you that one too. So same note, right? 7th fret on the G string. Now we've got the old pinky in there. So here's the finger spacing. So we just have the lone pinky on the G string. For the D string, we look like this. And then for the A string, we look like this. And that's what we got. And then that scale pattern you can check out too. Just like that, yeah. And that, that is the FFCP. And you know, the implications of this method, I hope are like, you know, kind of mind opening. You know, it just gives you a lot of different ideas about what's possible on the mandolin. There's really 4 different ways to play everything, not just scales or arpeggios, as we'll see later on, even like melodies. What I'd like to do next is take you through page 4 in the handouts here, which is Whiskey Before Breakfast in FFCP, basically showing you how you can play that fiddle tune, the classic fiddle tune that we all love to play in bluegrass, 4 different ways, starting on each one of our 4 fingers here. So check this out. This is just an excerpt, and you kind of have to like fill in the gaps yourself. But the first line is showing you how you can play the A section for that melody in the index position. So right, come up with the index on the 7th fret of your G string. We're in the key of D for this song, so it should sound something like this. You might have to shift a little bit to get that, you know, C sharp note down there if you want to for the melody. And this is just one way of playing the melody. Of course, there's tons of different ways. And I encourage you to, instead of looking at the tab, take your version of the melody that you know and see if you can work it out yourself in this new position, because that's going to train your ears as well as your fingers. But here's the version that I have written out. You know, if you were to keep it going for the whole A section, it would sound like this. More or less, so to speak. Let me show you that up close. Let me try that again. Just like that. This is like, I don't know. This is really one of my favorite things to do, or maybe not my favorite things to do, because it is challenging, it's hard to do, but I think it's one of the most useful things that I do in my practice, because it's taking something that I already know. If you don't know this tune, take another tune that you know by heart, because that's where it really comes in handy. You're starting to take something that you know and see how it works in a different part of the fretboard. And you might be asking, like, what is the point of doing this, David? I'm never going to play Whiskey Before Breakfast up the neck there, because it doesn't sound as good as it does down here. And you're so right. Like, the open strings have a sound and a quality that you can't really replicate up and down the neck. The sustain, the volume that you get, just the scale length of the strings being longer down there, it makes the mandolin project in a different way. But the cool thing is, for one, you're working on finger strength doing this. If you learn how to play Whiskey Before Breakfast way up there, starting on your index finger, it's actually going to help you play the melody down here a lot better too, because you're starting to build up finger strength and independence and confidence in a way that you don't get just by playing with open strings. But also as an improviser, like if you're playing this tune and you find yourself up the neck, if you know the melody way up there, you can reference it and play around it in a cool way that, maybe you don't play the whole solo up there, but you can kind of play excerpts of it up there to give yourself some, I don't know, some cool ideas to work with. I don't know if I can actually do this, but you could do something like this. It's tricky, right? I don't know if that was the best example, but it shows you how I started here in the open position, worked my way up here, could still kind of reference the melody and use some different ideas to work with for the solo here. But hey, that's just one way to play this tune, right? We have 4 different fingers, 4 different ways to play this. So let's check out the middle finger version now. So start with the middle, same notes. Now we're just starting on our middle finger with that 7th fret. This one's hard. You're probably doing better than me on that one. This is such good exercises for me. I almost have to like not look at the tab because it's confusing. I'm almost thinking about the melody with this different fingering. But here's what it hopefully would look like. Check this out. A little bit different there for that one, but that's kind of the cool thing too. You know, if playing the melody in these higher registers with different fingerings, if it makes you play the melody differently, I think that's almost like a bonus because it's showing you how you can create different variations to suit the fingerings of a certain position. You might choose to play the melody one way, starting with your index, and play it a little bit differently to suit the fingerings and positioning for your middle finger, and then, the more the merrier, I think, in some ways, because it gets you all these new ideas for what you could do with a tune like this. Real quickly, let me show you the other 2 ones as well. So starting with your ring finger now, here's the same melody with the ring finger shape. Think your chop chord. This one's a little bit easier, right? Here's what that looks like. Nice. All right. And then here it is with the pinky as well. And once we're done with this, we'll take a little break and unpack all this again. Let me know in the chat there. Send me your questions here now early. So starting with the pinky, this one's not super fun, but it actually is a little bit easier because it almost looks like the first position here in the key of D, like with the open strings. Instead of using open strings, we're just using our pinky on the 7th fret. So it should kind of look like the normal Whiskey Before Breakfast. It should at least. Wow. Here's what that looks like up close. Oh man, I almost got that in. But yeah, let me just see if I can do this. But you can start to play through the whole tune different ways, right? So here it is with your index finger again. Middle finger. Ring finger. Pinky. I can't talk and do that at the same time. I should have known better. Something for all of us to work on there. But all right, let's check in. I know that's a big concept as well. Let me know in the chat what you think. All right. Tian Mando says, I started working on this a while ago when I noticed the ring finger pattern was easy to play off the third finger chop position. Yeah, you're so right. Like, once you know the chop shape, it really becomes one of the most useful shapes ever because it's so familiar to us, especially in bluegrass. If you started out playing those chop chords early on, it's just showing you how you can utilize that shape to also play melodies and play licks and some awesome stuff that way. Okay, Glenn Stewart says, somehow I came across the FFCP patterns a couple of years ago. Believe it or not, I got pretty comfortable with them, even the pinky and middle finger ones. Very cool, Glenn. You know, that's something to be proud of. It's a big accomplishment, getting more familiar with those different shapes. And for folks who want to dig in even deeper, that book I mentioned, Getting into Jazz Mandolin, I think is one of the best resources on this shape. It gives you all sorts of cool patterns and exercises that you can use in those different positions. Stuff that's really challenging, actually. And you don't even have to be into jazz to appreciate that book. I know it's talking about the context of FFCP, mostly in the context of jazz, but I think this is useful for bluegrass, is useful for improvising in any key, for fretboard knowledge in general. Super helpful there. Yeah, Dennis asking about the handouts. Yeah, so for folks just tuning in, all these handouts, they're available over on my Patreon page, all the paid tiers over there. There's a link down in the description below if you want to check it out. And for folks who are on the Patreon page as well, you can go back and watch this stream after the fact and review this material if you'd like to. The streams are only public when it's live, and then after the fact, it's just archived on the Patreon page. So thanks for checking that out. Glenn saying, such a cool exercise, taking a tune I know, open position play. Yeah, absolutely. I've tried to do this with a few tunes. Mando Mike, he's got some really great lessons on YouTube as well. I think he does this with a tune in the key of A. I forget if it's like Cherokee Shuffle, something like that, how you can play a tune 4 different ways. Even doing this with just one tune, like Whiskey Before Breakfast, is a fantastic thing to do, man. So challenging, but really helpful. I'm so glad, Madeline. Yeah. Once you start to see this, it's like, wow, there's so many possibilities. Getting up and down the neck. We even haven't talked about like how to traverse up and down the neck yet. We're just talking about like some useful shapes that you can use up the neck, and we'll get to that in a bit. But this is such a great place to start, I think. Just knowing the shapes on the fretboard as kind of like footholds, or if you think about you're climbing up a cliff, it's like this is something that you can rely on, that you can put your weight on whenever you get up there. When do we do thumb position, Philip says? That's a really good question. I guess we'll have to ask Mike Marshall about that, because I think he does do that sometimes, where he'll grab like a lower note with his thumb. I've seen him do that when he's playing Bach, and I don't know how he does it, man. I don't have big enough thumbs to like come across and still be able to use my other fingers. Let's see. Yeah, so Mandolin Stew's asking about, I like to think about how these shapes connect across the neck. Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit as well. I think that's useful, seeing how, like, not only do these shapes work in one octave, but when you start to combine more than one octave, you see how they overlap in different ways. Much like we saw with the chop box and the pentatonic box, those two shapes we started with, how they connect together in cool ways. If you connect a lower version of the pentatonic box with a higher version of the chop box, or vice versa, you get a lot more room to play with. And same thing with these FFCP scales, just the major scales here. Like for instance, if we maybe play in the key of D again, if we use our chop finger or our ring finger position, well, what if you just shift up to your index finger on that high note again, just like we did with the chop box and the pentatonic box? And all of a sudden you've got, oh yeah, that's my index shape that I used earlier. And if you want to look close up, all I'm doing is I'm shifting with my index finger at the top part of this scale right there. And I get the index finger shape. Shift down, now I'm in the chop shape, the ring finger shape. Or let's see, what's another one? What if we started with our middle finger, right? So we have the middle finger shape. Oh yeah, automatically my index finger is on that next one, right? And I've got, yeah, 2 octaves of the scale, starting with my middle finger shape, index finger shape. Or what if we started here? Index finger on the low root. So we have index finger shape. And then, oh yeah, like the high root is on my pinky now. I could just play the pinky shape to get that next octave. And all of a sudden these shapes, they start to become much more fluid, right? You can weave in and out of these shapes a little bit easier when you start to see how they connect. Thanks for bringing that up, Mandolin Stew. Yeah, and Adonis, so right, I think that one of the big things you'll encounter, if you're new to these shapes, if you're new to playing up the neck, it is a huge finger buster. And don't push yourself too hard if you're experiencing pain in any of these exercises or scales. Like definitely don't get to that point. It takes a while to get comfortable with these shapes, and kind of months and years of practice to do it well. I'm still working on it myself. And you're definitely gonna feel like it's like weight training almost, where it's almost like you're wearing like ankle weights and you're trying to run a 5K, and then when you take them off, you realize like, oh yeah, I'm so much lighter now. Same thing when you start to play these tunes up the neck. When you come back to playing them in open position, it's just like, wow, this is so much easier. I can play this much better than I did before because I've experienced the challenge of doing it up the neck, and I've built finger strength because of it here. Yeah, that's so cool. EDJ saying from Arizona, happy I recently got a mandolin where I can comfortably play up the neck. That is so true. We haven't even talked about that, but setup and playability of your instrument, that's a big factor for all these things here. If your action is too high, if the spacing of the strings is way up here and you're trying to play up the neck, that's awful. And it doesn't sound good. It's really challenging to play, to hold down the strings so far. So that's a big thing. Like setup is a big factor when it comes to all this stuff. Trying to get your action as low as you can without getting buzz or fret noise and stuff like that. Yeah, awesome stuff, folks. Well, we have quite a ways to go still. Why don't we check out some arpeggios in the 4-finger closed position world? So here we're starting to see how, oh yeah, like not just scales work in the FFCP, but also other stuff. Like, I mean, you could do this with pentatonic scales, you could do it with minor scales, you could do it with modes if you want to. For now, let's just stick with arpeggios though, because this is really important for improvising, knowing that you can find the chord tones for certain chords when you're improvising to start with those notes or prioritize those notes in your improv. So here we're starting with the index finger for your A major arpeggio. And we're up here on the 7th fret of your D string, starting with your index. I'm doubling the roots at the top and when you get back to the bottom again, just to make it easier to play in 4/4 time there. Yeah, just like that. And then you can do the same thing for A minor arpeggios, right? Or just lowering what you call the 3rd of the chord by 1 fret. Sorry, that's the 10th fret on your D string there. So that's your A minor arpeggio in closed position, starting with your index. But check it out, same thing, right? What if we started with our middle finger? For your A major, it would be like this. A minor. A major. A minor. Let me show you these other two, and then I'll show you them all up close. So now if you use your ring finger on the root, here's your A major. And then A minor. Just lowering that C sharp to a C natural. A major. A minor. And then lastly, if we start with the pinky, here's what that looks like. A major, A minor. Man, that minor one, that's a stretch. You don't use your index finger at all for that pinky position, but here's that up close. So starting with your index finger on the root, 7th fret of your D string, here's your A major arpeggio. And then for the minor, we're just lowering to the 10th fret on the D string. And then here's your middle finger version. So we have A major. That one's tricky, right? You're having to cross 3 strings. There we go. And then back down to your minor chord. And then what about your ring finger? Minor. And then your pinky. Again, we're not using our index finger at all for this one. Just like that, you know, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. You know, arpeggios are useful for so many things, like we were talking about. I hear Steve Forster's talking about, like, yeah, it's helpful to use songs to help these concepts sink in. And one thing I love to do with these arpeggios is to see if I can maybe even arpeggiate the chord changes for a song that I know. Like something really easy if you wanted to do like Bury Me Beneath the Willow, right? That's a simple song in the key of G, right? You could do G, C, G, D, right? That's pretty much the whole song, right? So bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I am sleeping, and perhaps she'll weep for me. So you can use these shapes to arpeggiate the whole song if you wanted to, right? We just have to know our major arpeggios, right? For G, C, and D. So for G, what if we use, like, you know, index finger on the root right here? That's the 5th fret of your D string. And then when we get to the C, we could use this shape right here. And then back to G, right? And then what if we used middle finger on the root for D, just to get something different there? And then back to G, right? And then all of a sudden we can, like, arpeggiate out the chord changes in time to the chord progression, right? So let me show you what I mean. If we were to do that in the same time as that chord progression for Bury Me Beneath the Willow, it would sound something like this. Apologies, I can't probably sing and play it at the same time, but it would start with G for 2 measures, and then C for 2 measures, and then G, and then D, G, and then back to C, G, that's showing you like, okay, these are like the chord tones that I could use if I was soloing over that tune, the shapes that I could play around. And you know, when you start to connect the dots a little bit too, like, oh yeah, these shapes, I can also see like my pentatonic box. I can also see my chop box nearby. I can fill in the gaps with some different notes. And when I'm soloing, all of a sudden, like my brain kind of takes over, or I don't even have to think about it. It's just like, oh yeah, these are the things I've worked on. Let's see if I can build a solo that works with these shapes. So just to give you a rough idea, you know, you could do something like this, like maybe not the best example, but I'm just thinking about those arpeggios in 4-finger positions, trying to not shift and just play some of those shapes that are close by. And yeah, the more you do this, the more your brain kind of takes over and just does all that work for you. You just have to drill these quite a lot to get to that point. But let's check out another musical example, not a song, but what if we were to use some of these shapes in the form of an exercise, a chord progression that, you know, kind of utilizes some of these 4-finger positions. So if you check out in your next page of the handouts there, we're gonna look at an exercise that was something I did for a video a little while ago. It's called Make Your Arpeggios Beautiful. And we're just using these 4 shapes, starting on each one of your fingers and adding in some extra notes to some of these arpeggios as well, like major 7s or 6s, or even stuff like, you know, minor 6s and all sorts of stuff like that. And making it sound really beautiful, right? This is like an almost like a etude you can think of, more like a song than an exercise. And let me just show you what I mean. So what if instead of just playing your A major arpeggio up and down like that, what if you just went up? We're just gonna ascend for this exercise. And every time we get to the high note, we're gonna change the note to get like kind of a melody almost. So we're gonna start with A, and then go to A major 7, A6, A major 7. You can just do that over and over again to practice. Same triad, same 3 notes at the start. I'm just changing the high note. So it's A on top, G sharp on top, F sharp on top, G sharp on top. Right, so we're creating a melody within the arpeggios, even though we're still playing an A major arpeggio at the chord. And then you can do the same thing here on the next line with your B minor arpeggio. Here we're doing kind of like a chromatic walk down. Check this out. So we're playing that as our core arpeggio, or it's like, you know, B, D, and F sharp, starting with your middle finger on the root, the B note here. And we're walking down chromatically. Here that is again, so it's B minor major 7, B minor 7, B minor 6. The fret numbers are 2 on top, 1 on top, 7 on the D string on top, 6 on top. That one's hard, right? That one kind of takes it out of your left hand. Be careful with this one. But yeah, that's the melody. Some people call that a cliche chromatic line, but you know, it's cliche for a reason. It sounds really nice. And yeah, it creates this movement, even though again we're still just playing a B minor arpeggio there. So let's back up. What if we were to play that all together? This is kind of like it's almost like a fiddle tune, this exercise. I think of these first 2 lines as the A section. You can see there's repeats there. And if you can, you know, read past my head bubble there, let's see if we can play these first 2 lines together. So it would sound like this, real slow. A to A major 7, A6, A major 7, then B minor, B minor major 7, B minor 7, B minor 6, then back to A. Do it all again. A major 7, A6, A major 7, B minor, B minor major 7, B minor 7, B minor 6. Right, so that's our A section for the tune. Nice work, folks. Again, yeah, give your hand a break. Let me show you the next part here. This is kind of like the B section, you could think about it. A little bit longer, and we're using some other shapes that we looked at in the FFCP version of these arpeggios. So we're starting up with the D major 7. Now we have our pinky on the root, the D note here, for a D major 7 arpeggio. And then next we go to a D6. We're lowering the top note again to your B note there, 2nd fret. And then check this out. We're gonna go to a D minor 7 now, with your pinky still on the root there. You're having to stretch quite a lot there. Not using your index finger at all until the D minor 6 when you're grabbing the 2nd fret with your index. So let's try those 4 chords together. So you have D major 7, D major 6, D minor 7, D minor 6. And then we're staying kind of in this territory. We're not going to shift back, but we're going to now go to C minor 7 with your ring finger on the root now. C minor 6, there we go. C major 7 with your ring finger now. C major 6. That's tricky, right? Let's try that again. So C sharp minor 7, C sharp minor 6, C major 7, C major 6. And then if I scroll up here, we have B minor 7 again, B minor 6, starting on your middle finger for both of those, B flat major 6, starting on your middle finger, B flat 6, and then we get back to A. Same thing as the beginning, the major 7 to the major 6. And that's the B section there, right? Let me, let's see, I'm gonna come to a different page here and show you the whole sheet. And I know it's tiny print there, but let me show you what this looks like for that B section first, and then we'll try the whole thing together. So starting with the B section, D major 7, D major 6, D minor 7, D minor 6, C sharp minor 7, C sharp minor 6, C major 7, C major 6, B minor 7, B minor 6, B flat major 7, B flat 6, and then back to A. And then once you got that down, you can put the 2 parts together to kind of create this fun fiddle tune almost. This weird postmodern fiddle tune. You know, this chord progression is so different too. It's not really congruent with a certain key, right? Where I'm just came up with this chord progression for one. I thought it sounded kind of cool. And also you can start to see how we're using those major and minor shapes that we talked about earlier in the FFCP arpeggio sheet. And we're kind of combining them together in these weird ways. It's almost like you're descending chromatically across this progression from D major to D minor, C sharp minor, C major, B minor, B flat major, down to A. And you're using all 4 shapes, right? Starting on your pinky for the D and D minor, ring finger for the C sharp minor and the C major, middle finger for the B minor and B flat major, and then your index finger for A. So just to explain the method behind the madness here. But when you string all this together, this is what it looks like and sounds like, hopefully. So starting with your A chord at the beginning, A major 7, A6, A major 7 to your B minor, minor, major 7, B minor 7, B minor 6. Back to the top. A major 7, A major 6, A major 7, B minor next. Are you ready for the B part? Here we go. D major 7, D major 6, D minor 7, D minor 6, C sharp minor 7, C sharp minor 6, C major 7, C major 6, B minor 7, B minor 6, B flat major 7, the big stretch, B flat 6, back to A. But you also see we have repeats here too, right? We gotta start back at the top of the B section, do all that again. Here we go, to your D major 7, D major 6, oops, there we go. And then D minor 7, D minor 6, C sharp minor 7, C sharp minor 6. You know the drill. And that's how to make your arpeggio sound beautiful, right? How is this sitting with y'all? Let's unpack this a bit. Thomas is saying, on the index finger start position, is there a recommended preference for playing the minor third with the second middle or third with? Yes, I understand what you mean. Yeah. So when you're going to the minor arpeggio, starting with your index, like A minor, for instance, I think it's pretty paramount to use your ring finger there for that lower third, even though it might feel comfortable at first to use your middle finger, because that allows you to kind of fill in the gaps of, like, say, your A minor scale. That's what informs the fingerings. If you zoom out and see, like, kind of the higher structures, the ones that involve all the notes within the key, that's what finger you would use on the C normally when you're playing the scale, right? Because you have to play the B note, the C. So great question. Thanks for bringing that up, because it's really thinking about how do your fingerings work within the context of the scale and the key that you're in, and then using those same fingerings that you would use for the scale on the arpeggios as well. Fortunately, we don't have time to go into like the minor scales for the FFCP, but if you want to, that would be a really good next step to take once you feel comfortable with the major scales. 4-star saying, this is so helpful. Awesome. So glad. Just wondering if you could apply some of these arpeggios to perhaps a song. Oh, yes. Great question. So I think other songs, we talked about Bury Me Beneath the Willow. I do this a lot with fiddle tunes where I'll just arpeggiate out the chord changes for anything. In fact, this is something that dates to back to some of the great jazz players in history. And, I remember hearing about Ornette Coleman, who was famous, free jazz saxophone player. And he did all this stuff, breaking boundaries, playing stuff that was really off the wall, and would improvise without any constraints, like any confines. Like they would make whole records where there was no melody, there's no form really, just freely improvising in different keys. But I would hear that, like, even before going on stage to play this type of music, you could hear Ornette Coleman backstage arpeggiating out the chord changes to famous jazz standards, like All the Things You Are, or it just goes to show, like, even someone who thinks so freely about music still understood and appreciated the structure of arpeggios and how it really ties to the whole structure of a song, really, because even like the melody is dictated by those arpeggio notes. You can see how like a melody like our Whiskey Before Breakfast kind of does it. Like the melody there is really just an arpeggio. D, F sharp, and A are being played at really important beats in the measure. You you start to see how those arpeggio notes, they really are prominent through important parts of a melody just to line up with the chords. So good. Susie, don't worry if it feels too advanced for you now. You'll definitely get there, I know. And that's my hope by these streams, is to start with things that anyone can grasp, and hopefully show you that you can take this to the moon if you want to. If you look at folks like Sierra Hull and Chris Thiele and Mike Marshall and all my mandolin heroes, they've spent so much time with this stuff, and I think that's how they play the way they do, is understanding these shapes and these structures up and down the neck. Storm Seal is talking about the diminished scale here. Oh, that's tricky. Yeah. Whole half, or half whole. That's tricky, isn't it? I don't know a whole lot of diminished scale stuff, but there is a handy trick that actually I think Jethro Burns, the great pioneer of the jazz mandolin, did. You might know this one if you've been studying the diminished scale, but check this out. Like, say if you're playing a C diminished chord, you can play like this cool, almost like arpeggiated lick by keeping your fingerings the same on each string, but just going back 1 fret on each string. So if you start with C here on your index, go up 3 frets on your ring finger there, and then come down to your 4th fret, your G flat there, and then up to your A, same spacing. And just kind of like, you're kind of climbing down a ladder, taking 1 step down at a time. Just like that, yeah. And you can do all sorts of stuff too. You can do like you can kind of mess around with the whole half that way, or you could do half whole. That one's maybe a little bit trickier. I'm not sure if it works quite as well, but that's the famous lick that a lot of people tend to draw from on the mandolin when it comes to the diminished scale. Don't worry if that just is total nonsense to you if you don't know much about the diminished scale. I don't know much about it myself, and it really only comes in handy in certain situations. You can do the same thing with the whole tone scale too. I don't know if you've kind of seen that pattern. It's the same idea. Like if you walk up the whole tone scale, whole. It just lays out where you can play it with 3 fingers on each string and just move back 1 fret towards the net on each string there. Super fun. Both those are really handy. Like if you're playing over, you're taking a solo over a tune. Like, what's a good one? Like Fork of Deer. That's one we've looked at on the site. It's a fiddle tune in the key of D, and then when you get to the B section, it goes to like this A chord, the 5. Whenever you have like a long 5 chord like in that tune, it can be fun to either mess around with like the whole tone scale or the diminished scale. So at the risk of losing some viewers, check this out. Like if you're playing like that tune, when you get to the B section, definitely not the most tasty version of that whole tone scale, but you can add that over the 5 chord, and it kind of works because the 5 has this tension that a lot of jazz improvisers use that opportunity to insert even more tension by going to the augmented scale or to the diminished scale too. You can do the same thing. And just kind of like give a little flavor of it, and maybe try to get back to your D scale or the A mixolydian mode if you're thinking about it like that. But that's, I don't know if I could talk anymore about that. That's like above my pay grade. But hopefully that's helpful there. Let's see what other questions we got. Thunderous Thrasher. Now someone needs to do a cover of Niccolo's Paganini's Caprice number 24. I think it maybe has been done. There's I forget. There's a mandolin player over in Asia somewhere. I think who's maybe been working on the Paganini Caprices on the mandolin, and it's really cool to hear. I can't think of his name at the minute, but you know, not many people have done it, and maybe we'll get to it here at some point. I've never been brave enough to try those caprices because they're so challenging. But Trace says, found the channel last week. Thank you for your videos. Thank you so much for watching, Trace. That's so cool to have you here. And Tim, what's up, Tim? Good to see you. What great exercises need to carve out some time to work on these finger busters. Yeah, I know it's challenging. Like I tend to find myself playing tunes or pieces of music more frequently than playing exercises like this. But it can be helpful to kind of lay the foundation for finger strength, for dexterity, and all this stuff. I think it really just helps play those songs better because you're getting kind of a different perspective, a different experience by doing these things. But it's good to balance it with real practical music too. Stuff that you're actually going to play with other people instead of like a crazy chord progression in arpeggios. All right, folks. Are we even halfway through here? This is scary. I think we just made it to halfway. So, let's check out page number 7 of our handout here. If you're following along, if you just tuned in, you can grab these handouts over on my Patreon page down at the link below. But here it is on screen as well with 4 shifting hacks. This is where I think things start to become a little bit more fun when you start to think about how to get from one place to the next, using these scale shapes and these arpeggio shapes, but also using some kind of techniques that that I don't know, I like to think of as cheats or hacks to get up and down the neck. And this first one you probably have heard before. It sounds like this. How do you play this? What was I doing here? There it is. Showing you how, you know, if you look at the fingerings on the standard notation, we're using our ring finger for all those higher notes, and it's a group of 3 notes. You're starting on the 5th fret of your E string, playing 3 notes, and then you're shifting up, using that open string as an opportunity to shift up to like your 7th fret, for instance, and then again to your 9th fret. This is a technique that gets used in a lot of fiddle tunes, especially in the key of A major, stuff like Brilliant C. Sam Bush, a tune that I was played for Mandolin Mondays recently that we're actually going to check out today. It's called Howdy in Hickman County. It's a really great tune by Howdy Forrester, or even like Lime Rock that we looked at for Fiddle Tune February. Tunes like that, they're so acrobatic, they're going up and down. But when you realize they're really only use open strings when shifting, that's how we create that sound, that sustain while moving from one place to the next. So string hopping is just like one technique that you can use with open strings to get from one place to the next, where you kind of take like a melodic motif, like this 3-note idea, and see if you can shift it up after you play that open string. Or you can even do stuff like this, like kind of a slight variation where instead of using groups of 3 notes, you use groups of 4. And the cool thing is you can do all that stuff on different strings too. It doesn't have to be your E string. Like you could do this like over the key of A, right? And on your A string. In fact, I worked up a version of another cool Texas-style fiddle tune in the key of A called Gray Eagle that uses that very same idea in the melody. It's like the A section is just just kind of standard fiddle tune stuff in the first position, but then the B section goes up the neck a little bit. Stuff like that, where you're kind of mostly playing notes that you could play in the open position, but you're using this string hopping technique to kind of play it in a different position. So let's check out kind of a variation of an open string shift that you could also use, the wormhole effect. A student of mine coined this phrase, and I just loved it. It's so fitting. It's where you're playing up the neck, and you play on a higher string at first, like here, you're starting on the E string, and then you shift to your A string, but then you use your open string above it as a way of getting down to the lower register. So here's what that looks like. Might be easier to follow along with the tab here, just so you can see where that open string comes in. So it's weird because you would think you would play the open string before shifting to the A string, but here we're kind of like creating this wormhole almost, where it's like you're playing on the A string first, and then when you get to, before you get to the 7th fret on the A string, you're using that open E as an opportunity to shift. Even though this is such a linear lick, this is really just like a scale backwards, but we're using that open string kind of in a weird way to shift back down in a helpful way. You know, there's a great tune that Matt Flinner wrote, my teacher. It's called Black's Fork, where I think he does this as well. How does that one go? You know, you're doing stuff like this. Maybe I'll show you up close. Where he's playing the ring finger on the 9th fret of the A string before playing the open E as a way to shift back down. Great tune, folks. Y'all need to go listen to his version and learn it from him. But just another example of how you can shift using these open strings. So that's hack number 1, open strings. Hack number 2 is using slides. Obviously, like, slides are a great way to get from one place to the other on the neck. And you can do it a couple different ways. One is with downstroke slides. That's slides that happen like on beats 1 and 3 of your measure here. So here's what this sounds like. Oops, I got the fret numbers wrong, but it's something like that. That's actually how it's written, I think, but it doesn't really matter too much. It's more just that concept, like, oh yeah, I can slide anywhere I want to, as long as I'm kind of landing on notes that fit with the key that I'm in. So that's a lick that you could play over like a D major chord if you wanted to. And then you could do the same thing in reverse order almost, like this, where you're using upstroke slides, sliding on like the and of 2 or the and of 4 to get kind of a slightly different sound. Works. I think it works well for going up or down the neck, either one of these. Another kind of D major lick. And here's what that looks like up close. So for both of them, for sliding up the neck, and it doesn't matter too much like what fingers you use, as long as you kind of like find yourself in a location after the slide, and you can use one of those FFCP positions to play some other notes around it. And then when you come back down, the upstroke slide, it would be like a, sorry. So using upstrokes, it gets a different sound there for sure, right? Hack number 3. Number 3 here is double stops. Like here's a harmonized scale that you could use to get up and down just using double stops. This is where you're kind of playing like here in the key of A, you're playing like an A major scale. As a way of getting up to this A double stop. So we're starting like on an E chord, and then just walking up the scale till you get to this A chord here. And we use the same fingerings too. Again, we're kind of shifting up using a motif, using the same fingerings, even though we're not using open strings this time. And guess what? You can start to combine these together. You could use slides and double stops as a way of getting up there if you wanted to. And then you could also use like some different inversions, like some different versions of the same chord. Instead of like starting on an E double stop, and working your way to an A double stop, you could just start like on an A double stop and play some different inversions of that same chord, some different combinations of your A, C sharp, and E notes to get from one place to the next. So check this out. So here we're starting off this high A double stop. Here we have a lower A double stop. And then here's another A double stop. And here's another one. So we can play the same chord, the same combination of those three notes, but get from one place to the next using those different inversions. So just like that. Here's both of those up close again. So for the harmonized scale, it looks like this. You hear Sam Bush do that quite a lot. Sometimes he does it with like even octaves. Like that's another form of double stops. That's my favorite Sam Bush. Like he does that quite a lot. And again, it's just a technique that you can use to get up the neck using that interval of an octave instead of like a third or a sixth like other double stops. You can use even an octave as a way of getting from one place to the next. And then yeah, check it out. If we use the inversions for your shifting, so we have A double stop here. A. And that takes a little bit more time, right? You have to really learn where those double stops happen in order to shift between them confidently. But let's try one last thing. So sequencing. This one's maybe a little bit broader, but this shows you how you can take an idea and shift it through different registers to create motion that carries you from one part of the neck to the next. I don't know if you've seen, there's a cool video that I think Reverb, like the used instrument website, they put out of Sierra Hull doing this cool arpeggio octave exercise. And this is kind of like an excerpt from that, something that a lot of classical violin players learned back in the day too. They still do, I should say. It's still useful even today. But this is like a G major 7 arpeggio, showing you how you can play it in 3 octaves. And you can use that as a structure to get from one place to the next. My dog Finn in the background, he loves arpeggios. You can hear him howling. So it doesn't maybe necessarily make shifting easier, but the thing that helps is it gives you some structure to show you how you get from one place to the next. You're using kind of like a building block, like this one arpeggio. And then you see, okay, when I get to the octave of that first arpeggio, that's my opportunity to shift, play another octave, and then shift and play another octave. And you can also do this not just with arpeggios, you can do this with like scale patterns, for instance. That's what those next few measures are. If I can actually play this. So it's almost like reminiscent of a Vassar Clements lick, this one. Whoa, let's see what's going on. Sorry. Just like that. Ah. You can also slide if you want to. But that one, you're just seeing how, oh, I'm playing like an arpeggio there. What if I shift down one note on the scale and go up the arpeggio, and then shift one note down on the scale, go down the arpeggio, down one note again, up the arpeggio. So it's a pattern that gives some structure to give some meaning and purpose to your shifting. You could also go up that way. I think the Vassar lick was this. Something like that, where I think you shifted a bit more chromatically. Vassar Clements, this is, if there's any folks new to his fiddle playing, unbelievable artist. But yeah, that's kind of just a more melodic or more diatonic version of that lick. And then that arpeggio lick, if you want to see that up close. Just like that, yeah. Cool. Well, those are the hacks. I think using these 4 ideas, you have the open strings, you have slides, you have double stops and sequencing. that's the majority of what I do to get from one place to the next on the neck, you know. And then once you get used to that shifting, that's where the other stuff that we've talked about earlier comes into play. Like once you find yourself up the neck, then it's relying upon like a FFCP arpeggio shape or one of those major scale shapes, or you know, beginning of the workshop here, the two boxes, the chop box or the pentatonic box. You can start to identify those shapes and then hang out there for a little bit and then shift to another box or shift to another shape. And the best way to do this is just to kind of like noodle. You know, I hate at workshops, there's this big stigma against noodling. And I guess like in a you know, live in-person setting when there's a bunch of mandolin players in a room, it's not helpful to have someone just kind of noodling while the teacher's talking. But that's kind of the cool thing about doing online workshops, is that you guys can noodle as much as you want to while I talk. And that's the best way to really get comfortable and confident with this stuff, is just to try it out, not to be worried about making mistakes, but just experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't. So free noodle permission for all of these online workshops. I hope you guys just really get a chance to try this out here. But yeah, so coming up, we've got some other stuff that I'm excited to share too. Actually, 2 tunes that I want to show you, and then also some position studies showing how you can also think about, instead of just a shape and a 2-string territory, you can think about all 4 sets of strings in a certain position up and down the neck with scales. That is really fun. At least I think it's fun. It's kind of nerdy stuff. But here, I know we're coming up on almost 2 hours, and I think it's time to maybe take a break to go get a refill for some coffee and all that stuff. And when we come back, we'd love to unpack the stuff that we talked about earlier. So please keep the chat coming. Give me some questions here. We'll catch up in just a second. But I will be right back in just a few minutes, and I'll see you soon. And we're back. Thanks for hanging around, folks. Oh man, these streams have been so fun. I hope you guys have been enjoying them. I've just got back to doing these over the past few months here. But you know, we used to do streams a lot more regularly, and then I stopped for a bit when I became a dad recently and had some other things going on. And yeah, and now it's so fun, like, getting to do these deep dives with you folks. I do hope that they're helpful, and we'll have to do some more polls and different Q&As about what we should do for future live streams like this. We did one on double stops last month. That was really fun. Or I guess that was like back in March. And then we also did one for Fiddle Tune February. And I got some ideas for some other streams that I'm excited to share soon here. Let's see. But let's catch up with some stuff here. Dave says, have there been any reports of Mandos catching fire while these exercises are practiced? I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, it's tricky. I know what you mean. Don't worry if they don't come super easy. And yeah, you have to spend some time with them till you really get to that level of comfort where it doesn't feel like your hands are catching fire. Let's see. David says, I'm coming from the banjo side of things, the dark side of things. I've been working on not relying on my pinky so much, but I'm a little relieved to see that the pinky is not eliminated from all of this. Yeah, you know, I think when it comes to some practicality with the mandolin, a lot of players avoid using the fourth finger. So they would probably not use the fourth finger shape for like the arpeggios or major scales like we talked about for the FFCP. And I think that's okay. Like you can shift around and prioritize maybe some of your stronger fingers, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're playing incorrectly. I think a lot of players like Adam Steffi, I hardly ever see him use his pinky. He's one of my favorites. He's won multiple Grammys, so it's like you can't argue with that. I think it's whatever works best for you. Sometimes like seeing the pinky though in these shapes can help you have the complete picture of what the scale should look like, the whole shape on the fretboard, because you're using one finger for every, or using all four fingers for every string, I should say, when it comes to playing in some of the positions that we're going to be looking at in a bit. So we'll get to that, but yeah, it is tricky. I know what you mean. Whether you're used to using your pinky or not. The Susie says, not a noodle-free zone, but a free noodle zone. Yeah, we should like bring noodles to our next live stream. I love that. Funny you should say that. Light bulbs are going off everywhere while I'm noodling. I'm so glad to hear that, EDJ. That's awesome. Yep. It really is so fun. In fact, like I try to, whenever I practice, leave some time just to really noodle freely, like not to worry about stuff, because you can really discover new things about the mandolin that way. Keep the comments coming. If y'all have any other questions, let me know. But we have a couple tunes to check out here. If you're following along with these handouts, I've got over on my Patreon page. There's a link down below. We're checking out page number 8 here. And just a little self-indulgence here. I thought it'd be fun to show you a tune that I wrote a while back. It's on a record of mine called The Golden Angle. And it's a tune that uses some of these string hacks to create some shifting opportunities and some different sounds up the neck. It's called The Red Room. And yeah, it's basically just a 2-part fiddle tune. It's nothing super special. The A section even is very standard, like just mostly in the first position. Play great, but the turnaround of that A section is where it starts to get a little bit interesting, where we have this slide. So this is like on the second measure of that line there, that second line of the page. Where I'm, again, kind of using like the wormhole effect almost. Some people call this melodic string crossing or melodic cross picking, where you're kind of playing a combination of open strings and fretted notes up the neck to create this harp-like sound. You have a lot of sustain, a lot of open strings ringing out. That sounds way different than if you were just to play the notes down here. as opposed to like you get that open E, A, and D strings effect when you play it up the neck like that. So check this out. So if you look at the second measure of that line, we're sliding up from the 4 to the 7 on the D string. And then we have an upstroke slide on the 4 to 5. So we're utilizing that hack slides. And then we're playing kind of a combination of open strings and then up on the A string and then the 7th fret on the E string. And then that's a kind of a fun lick. The next measure there is playing 5 on the E, 9 on the A, open E, 5, and then 9 on the A and D strings. And then using that open A string as an opportunity to shift back down to the open position there. Here's what that looks like up close. So I'm actually not using any pinky action there. This is one of those opportunities to prioritize your ring fingers. Just like that. And then when we get to the B section is where it starts to get a little bit more tricky, mostly up the neck here. And it's kind of similar to what we looked at just there, the turnaround of the A section. It just develops that material a little bit more. Yeah, let me show you that too. Something like that at least. Let's see. Yeah, Thunderous Thrasher saying, I have a problem with my flying pinky, so I'm glad I don't have to use it while playing. Yeah, for this tune, it's definitely more index and ring finger priority there. So let me just walk you through what's happening with this B section. So we're kind of sliding up to the 5th fret of your D string. And then we're kind of playing across 3 sets of strings here. Leaving your ring finger down on the 9th fret, index on the 5th fret, and then the open E. And that's the interesting thing, that whole lick is based on like the 5th and 9th frets of your D, A, and E strings, and then using the open E and A strings as well. And then similarly for the next 2 measures, it starts off with that slide to the 5th fret. And then that's just the tricky bit at the end of that phrase. Over the A chord, we have open A, sliding up to the 11th fret on the D strings. And then using the open E and A strings to create that melodic sound. That is more like a banjo lick. And then we just repeat what we did at the beginning for the next line. And then we actually have the same turnaround as the A section. And here is that all up close. So slide up to the 5th fret. Just like that. And here, while we're at it, just to show you what this would sound like up tempo, here's the whole tune, starting with the A section. Nice. Just a an opportunity to show you what's possible when you use some of these hacks that we talked about earlier. And if you like, yeah, that transcription's, it's available in those handouts over on Patreon. You can work a little bit more on it. It's from a record of mine. I'm really proud of that record, even though it's coming up on like, wow, like 8 years old now. That's hard to believe. At least I recorded it. I think it was in 2017 with let's see, Stuart Duncan playing fiddle and Wes Corbett on banjo and Missy Raines playing bass amongst a bunch of other folks as well. So you can check that out. It's online as well, Spotify, everything like that. Yeah, that's one that utilizes all those ideas we're talking about, the string hopping, the slides, not so much double stops, but just kind of gives you some motifs that you can use up and down the neck like that. So let's check out one other tune as well. If you come back to those handouts, next up in the PDF is one called Howdy in Hickman County, which I just played this for a Mandolin Mondays video here on the channel recently, and it was a really good review. I haven't played this one in a little bit, but it's a 4-part tune written by a fiddle player named Howdy Forrester, who's kind of like the first virtuosic bluegrass fiddler, and well, maybe not the first, but one of the most prominent. And he wrote all these really cool tunes that are attributed to him now. And this one was recorded by Sam Bush on a record that he did with Alan Mundy, a fantastic banjo player, still around teaching and playing. But they did a duo record that's not that well known, which it's a shame because it's so amazing. It's like such a great record. It's called Together Again for the First Time. Fantastic name for a record. And it's mostly like mandolin and banjo duets. They have a band as well, but this track, Howdy in Hickman County, just mandolin and banjo. And let's see if I can even play a little bit of it for you. It might go something like this. Go listen to Sam Bush for a much better version of it. But that's the tune. They do some cool variations the second time around. But yeah, it's just 4 parts, A, B, C, D, and then coming back to the A there at the end with this little kind of fun ditty that happens at the beginning and end. It almost sounds like that Apple ringtone. Which, heads up, you might see a video about that coming here in the next few weeks. But yeah, let me just show you some of the cool tricks that are used in this tune to get from one place to the next. Some really classic fiddle tune vocabulary that it's not just useful for this tune. You can kind of extrapolate some of these licks from this tune to apply to any other tune in the key of A or even different keys. Check this out. So the tune, it starts off, it's in the key of A. Pull this up. And howdy. And it starts off way up the neck. And here's what's going on. Like, we're playing an open string at the beginning and then shifting all the way up to the 12th fret. the 9th, then the 12th fret. And then we play this kind of fun lick. It's we're playing an arpeggio, really, 12, 9, and then 12 on the A string, followed by an open E. And then we're using that open E string as a chance to shift down to the 9th fret with our ring finger. And then using that next open E string as an opportunity to shift down to the 4th fret with our middle finger. And then that's what happens. It's like this sequence. And it's cool. It's like using open strings and sequencing as a way of getting from one place to the next. And that's actually kind of a classic lick. I think I have a short here on the channel called like every mandolin player's favorite lick in the key of A. And that's really what it is, because it's so fun. It sounds really acrobatic, even though it's not super challenging to play once you get it down. It's like you're just using these 3 fingers and you're using open strings as that shifting opportunity. Just like that. And then the rest of that A section is just kind of played down here in the first position until the second line, when you kind of repeat what's going on. You use that open E string as a chance to shift up again. Just like that, yeah. That's the big showman lick there for the tune. But it really is just one trick at the beginning, right? But let's check out like a couple other tricks that happen. Every section has some shifting, which is challenging with this one. When you get to the B section, we have this kind of triplet motif, right? We're not shifting up the neck, but it's a great way of getting from one place to the next, taking one idea and kind of, you know, transposing that lick to other chord tones. And then we're using, an open string to shift up to this position. Using the wormhole effect to get back down. And then we're back kind of in the first position for the rest of that. Just like that, yeah. Let's check out another section here, just to dissect what's going on. This one, I think, is the hardest part of the whole tune, because we have like a lot of shifting. Almost like every measure. Here's what that looks like a little closer. So, you know, every measure we're kind of using an open E string to get from one place to the next. And there's no rhyme or reason. That's why it's a bit challenging. Wormhole. Up close, you know, faster, it's like this. That one's a beast. It's like a tongue twister for your left hand. So let's check out the last section as well, and I'll leave you to kind of check this out on your own time. We'll come up to this one right here. So the D part, it's mostly in the first position, but it has a kind of a cool shift in the second phrase. So starting on an E chord. And we're kind of using that string hopping effect to get up to the ring finger on the 9th fret there. Shifting back up again. And then when we get to the B chord, I'm kind of using that open E string in a different way to harmonize with your B major chord. And then we're just there in the first position for the rest of that. Whew, all right, let's see. Let me see if I can play through this tune again a little slower up close here so you can see if you can catch those different tricks that's going on here. So here's the first part. It sounds like this. Second part. Ah, there it is. Third part. Oh man, that's the hard one, isn't it? There we go. And then the fourth part. And at that point, you can repeat the A section if you want to, or come up with your own variations. But wow, I think I need a break after that. That's tricky. It's almost harder to play that slower than it is to play it fast once you get it down. Oh, nice. Let's see. Nav Deep Topic saying that working on those right hand exercises that I posted here on the channel. Daily basis for 7 hours. That is unbelievable, man. I wish I had 7 hours to play the mandolin each day. Yeah, Delane Pascal's asking about the record that this tune is on, that Sam Bush recorded with Alan Mundy. It's called Together Again for the First Time. And yeah, there's some awesome tunes on there, not just this one. Really, really good stuff. Glenn saying, nice, that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah. Me too, honestly. Like this is challenging stuff. I know we're getting into the more advanced and higher advanced levels here as the workshop goes on, but hopefully this shows you like what's possible as you get more and more confident up and down the neck. As you push yourself to like reach these challenges, it's gonna become a lot easier to utilize these higher parts of the fretboard. Yeah, don't worry, Susie. I know like it can be challenging with the fingers, but sometimes it's surprisingly easier to do some of this stuff than not. Or I should say, like it looks harder than it is. And I think sometimes that gate of entry, that barrier of entry, we kind of like suppose that it's too hard for us to try, and it keeps us from trying it, which actually holds us back in the long run. So I would just encourage y'all to try some of this stuff, even if it feels really challenging, even if it feels like it's too hard or it's gonna really hurt your fingers. It might, but it also might not. And you might be surprised at how much you can learn just by like a 10 or 15 minute session trying to read through like the first two measures of this tune. You know, something little like that. It can really open up your eyes to so much. Here, those tunes, work on them on your own time if you want, but together I want to maybe focus on one last thing with you all for this big mega workshop, and that's position studies. And it's showing you how you can really combine all the stuff that we've talked about together. So let me come back over to the handouts. If you're looking with me, this is page 9, I believe. And it just shows you how you can play through like the G major scale and basically any spot that you find yourself up and down the neck. Not just like in 2 strings, but on all 4 strings, not 5, 4. So check this out. So the G major scale shifting up with index. Each line of this handout is basically like a new spot on the neck that you can play with. So this is your open position to begin with, right? You probably know this. So we're just kind of starting and repeating the high note, repeating the low note. If you want to repeat this exercise and loop it, you can definitely do that. I know it sounds maybe a little weird that we're not playing the root on the top end of that scale, but as you'll see, as we keep going up the neck in different positions, we're going to start to deprioritize the root as the starting place, right? Which is weird because that's how all those FFCP positions were determined, right? It was the starting finger on the root. But as soon as you start to get beyond that, start to think about the scale not just being based around that one note, but it starts to become like a territory or a certain matrix or framework that you can operate within up and down the neck. That's where things start to become really useful because you're not just hunting and pecking for one note. You're kind of seeing all 7 notes of this scale as opportunities that you can utilize for your solo. So just to show you what I mean on the next line there, this is the next position that you can play for your G major scale. This is where we're starting to play in closed position with your index finger now on the A note. And some of you folks might already be saying, like, isn't that just like the A Dorian mode? And you're right, it is. But for folks who don't know about modes, or if modes are confusing to you, I think it's even more helpful not to think about it as a mode, but just to think about this is still G major, right? It's still 1 sharp in our key signature, the same notes, G, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. We're just, starting and ending on different notes, not necessarily a mode, still just all G major. And you can utilize these notes in a song that uses the G major scale. And then you can keep working your way up too. So check out like the next line. This is, maybe you call this like your 3rd position or maybe 2nd position scale where you're playing with your index finger now on the B note. It's tricky, right? It doesn't sound exactly like the G major scale because you're starting and ending on that B note, but still same notes, same 7 notes of your G major scale. And then check it out. Keep going up here. This is starting on the C note, right? 5th fret. And then you can keep going up to the 5th note of the scale, your 7th fret now. And then your 6th note here. You can even go up to your 7th note. And then, if you went one more, you'd be back to where you started. But that's a little bit hard to squeeze all those in, so I usually just stop at the 7th position there. So let me just show you all that here because it might make more sense just to look at it on the fretboard. So, starting with your open scale, we're just playing, your G major scale. And then we're shifting up to the next position, index on the A. Then up to the B note. Fourth note. Fifth note of the scale. Ooh. Oh man, let's unpack that. Because I remember the first time I encountered this exercise, I was like, what on earth is happening? Like, how do you know what all those notes are across the fretboard? And the answer is it just takes a lot of time and a lot of muscle memory to spend hours and hours playing those different positions and getting them into your fingers. And you start to see like other patterns, like for instance, like when you're playing this position, starting on the C note, your fourth note of the scale, you start to see like, oh yeah, within that scale, within that position, I've got like, oh yeah, my index finger shape for the G major scale. You see like, oh yeah, that's starting to happen there. Oh wait, if I come back down here, play this position, all right, I've got my ring finger shape for G major right here. Just that 1 octave shape is kind of built into this whole position. You start to see how all the stuff we talked about earlier really lays out, and you're filling in all the cracks when you do this. You're seeing how all those shapes connect together in every possible way up and down the neck. It's a time involved process. Like you can't just do this in one sitting. In fact, like I don't know if I've even done this with all 12 major keys, even though I probably should. Even just doing this with your G major scale, you're gonna start to see how these patterns, they'll actually carry over to the other keys as well, because we're mostly using closed position, no open string, so that you can just move these shapes around just like we've done with the other ones as well. And then, for folks who want to practice it, like the best thing that you can do is just play it like a song or like an exercise. So here's what I would do. Just like put on your metronome and try to play it like this. Like, you can work your way back down too. Woo! All right, folks. That is a lot. Yeah. Don't feel like you have to tackle all this in one sitting. Like all this stuff is kind of like a distilling of my whole musical experience with the mandolin, just like tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years to help play up the neck and feel confident with some of these shapes. But yeah, even just like spending a month with one of these concepts, like the pentatonic box or the chop box even, or the FFCP for your D major scale, or having to play like a fiddle tune in 4 positions like that, or learning Howdy in Hickman County. Any of these things are going to be really, really challenging, but also fun and really rewarding. I hope that you'll spend some time doing this here. Yeah, and let me know too if you have any more questions here before we wrap up. But again, you can find all these handouts over on the Patreon page. There's loads of other stuff on the page if you're not a member already. I think it's hopefully worth just the small chip in if you want to become a member. And there's loads more stuff coming as well. Like this past week we did a video on the topic of the pentatonic scale, about how you can take that pentatonic box and expand it for the whole fretboard, like learning it in positions even, like we were doing here with the major scale. That's over on the Patreon page too, those PDF fretboard diagrams. And yeah, I would love to do more theory stuff like this because I think it's so fun. And I don't know, something that's not really well represented in the mandolin online content. So hopefully this is helpful here. Glenn says, thanks, gives me something to work on for the next year. Yeah, I know what you mean. I need to spend a year getting ready for workshops like this. Speaking of workshops, if anyone's interested, I am teaching in person this summer at the Swannanoa Gathering. And most of what I'm teaching here is kind of like it's a summary of what I taught last year at the Gathering. So if anyone was in my class last year at the Gathering, and some of this might sound pretty familiar, and I'll be teaching 2 new classes there this summer that I'm really excited about. One, all on cross picking. Probably get into stuff like I did for that Red Room tune today, and we'll get into Jesse McReynolds style cross picking and different patterns that you can use with the right hand to make these tunes sound really fun and harp-like, and yeah, that's gonna be a blast. And then we're also doing a class on octave mandolin too. So if there's any octave players out there and you want to do a deep dive into like the intricacies, the differences of this octave instrument compared to the normal mandolin, we'll be doing a 5-day course on that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. It's a good excuse for me to really work on stuff as well. Yeah, hopefully there'll be more workshop opportunities like that as well. And in the meantime, we'll be doing some more streams too. Oh, Rick, you're gonna be at Swannanoa. That's awesome, man. I'm so excited to see you there. It's one of my favorite camps too. Like if you've been watching videos here on the channel for a little while, I think I did 7 videos from my time at the Swannanoa Gathering last year. It was like most of what I posted last year. It was from the Gathering, just because it's a fantastic way of connecting with these incredible teachers. Like I just had so much fun going around to the rest of the teaching staff and bugging them with questions about gear and recordings and all sorts of stuff like that. We even had like a big hang with the Lloyd Loar mandolins. We had 5 Lloyd Loar mandolins there in one spot, which was crazy, between teachers and students and friends. So yeah, you can check out some of those videos if you want to see what it's like, and hopefully it would see you there. It'd be so fun to get to connect in person. Yeah, oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you for these super chats here for Storm Sela. Wow, that was such a generous tip. Thank you so much. And Diane, thank you so much. And Tim, you guys are so generous. Yeah, thank you for the support here and over on Patreon too. Glad folks seem to like this. That's great. Helpful, fascinating ideas to get lost in. Yeah, it's so easy to get lost in it. My pleasure, Thomas. I'm so glad the material was helpful. And yeah, Will, so good to see you, Will. Yeah, so glad that this was helpful, folks. Well, cool. Keep up the good work. I know it's not easy playing up the neck, but hopefully this gives you guys a good place to start. Good direction for the future. Just some ideas that you can run with for the next little while here. And we'll be back with some more streams sometime soon. Hopefully in June and July as well. And if I don't see you at the Gathering, then I'll see you here on the channel for other videos. Thank you for subscribing, for liking, and all that stuff, all the usual stuff. And yeah, we'll check it out. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you soon.